Well, here's our much anticipated rub video, how I make my own meat rub for smoking or grilling or whatever. This is last year's batch. You can see it's gone. This is a pretty basic recipe. I mean, you can get all this stuff at the store except for the stuff that I've dried myself in the food dehydrator, all the vegetables that I grew last year that were left over. So my base for my rub is this Montreal steak seasoning, and I like this stuff. My whole family does. It's pretty basic. It has coarse salt, spices including pepper, black pepper, red pepper, garlic, sunflower oil, and natural flavor and extractives of paprika. So salt and pepper and garlic and paprika basically is what this is. And this is what I'm going to use for my base. But I like more garlic and onion in my rub with a little bit of heat. Not too much, just a little bit. So we're going to pour all that into our bowl. And we're going to start with some granulated garlic. I mean, you can use garlic powder or whatever. We're going to put a whole cup in. And this recipe changes every time I do it. I mean, I don't have an exact recipe that I use, but I generally always use the same ingredients. However, this year, we're using some of the dried vegetables that I did last summer. The cat wants in. Hold on. Next, we're going to use pure sea salt, and we're going to put a half a cup of that in. This is just Kirkland brand from Costco. There's a big old chunk in there. There we go. There, break up that chunk. So we've added our garlic and our salt, and we're going to put some onion powder. Hopefully we have enough onion powder for a half a cup. Ooh, that's close. Some old stuff we had. Now we've got our onion powder. I'm going to go ahead and put in some chives. I'm probably just going to eyeball this, just a little bit more oniony. There we go. Now, I have these chili peppers that I grew several years ago, and I dried them over a winter and put them in the magic bullet and pulverized them and turned them into a powder, and these are hot. And I always put a little bit of this, and this is 1 teaspoon of that. And for the heat, the jalapeno, this is jalapeno that I grew in my garden last year. Put them on the food dehydrator that you saw in my beef jerky video, the Nesco one. Dried them. All these have been dried in the same way. Put them in the magic bullet and turn them into a powder basically. And some of them went to powder, some of them are still pretty whole, but I'm going to put a little bit of this jalapeno in here. Like I said, not a whole lot, and we're probably going to do less than a tablespoon. Yeah, that's a little less, just to give it just a tiny bit of heat. So now we've got our heat in there with the chili pepper and the jalapeno. Now we're going to go ahead and put in some of the other stuff that I dried. This is red onion. I didn't get much red onion out of the dehydrator. This is all that I have, but I'm going to put all of that in this. And you know, when it comes to rubs, you can make rubs a million different ways. You know, you can make it more sweet, more hot, more tangy, zesty, whatever. And I've got a bunch of pepper. This is just generic, like green pepper, chili pepper, sweet pepper, I mean. Same way, dehydrated. We're going to put probably not all of this in there, but we're going to put a good tablespoon. This will give it a nice sweet peppery flavor when the meat cooks, and all the juices of the meat get to interact with the dried parts of this. This is banana pepper, the yellow banana peppers that are sweet. I'm just going to put some of this in here too. 1 tablespoon. Teaspoon? Yeah, teaspoon. What's the difference between a tablespoon and a teaspoon, right? The metric system. We need to go to the metric system. This is red bell pepper. Didn't get much of this either, but I'm going to go ahead and put it in. This will give this rub a nice red color. If I can get a whole thing of it here. And we have dried tomatoes. Got a bunch of that. This is just regular tomato that we dried. Same way. Pulverize it in the magic bullet. I'm going to go ahead and put a big scoop of that in there. And we have some Roma tomato. Probably tastes about exactly the same, but some of it's a little bit stuck together, so. And there's the Roma. I mean, we could put a lot more of that in there, but we're not. And my other thing that you've heard me talk about in the videos is the brown sugar that I put in my rub, and that is also part of the recipe. And like I said in the other video, brown sugar will caramelize a little bit on the meat. You let it sit in there long enough. We're going to put a whole cup, if I have a cup. Get those hard parts out of there. Now, the brown sugar, when you rub your meat, like a brisket or steaks or pork ribs and whatever, the brown sugar, if you put it on there and let it sit for a good half an hour, this will caramelize on the meat and react with the juices of the meat and give it that sweet sugary, brown sugary sort of taste. And it works really well. I never make a rub without the brown sugar. You could look up other videos on YouTube or whatever, and a lot of people use brown sugar in the rubs, and I found this on one of those like cooking competition shows where they were smoking who was the best meat smoker. I don't remember the name of the program, but I used the brown sugar on the bacon that I caramelized in one of my other videos too, and it turned out great. So now we're going to mix it all together and fill our containers, and we'll be done. One thing I should say is I usually don't use this rub on chicken or turkey or fish or anything. It's more of a smoker's rub, if you will, on beef and pork, and it works really good on those. I use totally other things for poultry and fish and whatnot. So we're just going to go ahead and mix this together. Try to crumple up the ones that are stuck together. Some of the brown sugar likes to crumple, or I mean stick together. And even some of these hard ones, like that's a brown sugar. Get that out of there. And that's what it's starting to look like. Still got to do some more mixing. I can smell that. It smells good. Just the rub itself smells good. And when you put this in your containers, you'll want to, every time you go to use it, you're going to want to shake up your container and break up because the brown sugar is going to want to stick to everything else, and so give it a good shake before you use it. And I'm just going to refill these, and actually we'll put the rest of the old rub in there. Looks just about the same, a little bit more red color because we put the tomatoes in it, but you get the picture. That's the rub video. I mean, there's a trillion different ways you can make your own rub. Like I said, some people might call this cheating, but that's okay. I don't care if somebody calls me a cheater because I don't do my rub from the ground up, you know, that's fine. But I'm a working man. I have to work during the day, and I don't have time to gather up all the little tiny ingredients. I mean, you can do that if you want, that's great, but for me this is what works and this is what my family likes. So take care till next time. If you want to subscribe or see what else we're doing on the channel, hit that subscribe button. Yeah, and take care.